Hello everyone, I'm Silverraptor and welcome to another Wargame Red Dragon video where we are covering a new deck of the Israeli nation. So I finally have the chance to cover this nation like the other YouTubers who have had this nation for about a week. But I'm able to finally give my thoughts and all the units that I can pick from and share it with you guys. So we'll be jumping into how exactly I've organized my deck shortly. I do have a bit of a plan for this nation, and I'll tell you all of my general idea and strategy behind building this deck, as well as several of my prejudices and why I picked a couple of units over others that a lot of the other YouTubers are picking more commonly than I did. But I still think that this would work competitively, it would work out, and I do hope to impress you guys with what I put together so far. So we'll start off with the logistics tab. Of course, we've got the fob. We're going to ignore that. We've got the Yasur, the CH-53 supply helicopter. Now, of course, a lot of supply. Mini fob behind your front lines, able to resupply your units that need to be quickly repaired. Carries a lot of supply on a very fast speed helicopter. Why wouldn't you get this? Next, we have the Oshkosh, which is basically the hemped, armored, transport, fast-wheeled. Basics, basically enough said. We can move on even further. To get to the interesting part, the infantry CV. Now, we've got the infantry CV in a tank, the Merkava 2A, and this has got a grenade launcher on the top, a pretty good accurate gun, and 18 front armor for 80 points. This is a really, really nice tank to come with, especially with the fact that it's dropping off a CV. These infantry are going to be well protected inside this tank, so he can get them to the destinations they need to be able to capture sectors. That is very good. I also have another regular CV here. It's the vehicle, the Atzeret Picard. 10 front armor, 6 side armor, 5 back armor. So this is basically mostly artillery proof, or at least HE artillery proof. Cluster can still kill this because it only has 2 front top armor. But you don't really have to worry so much about artillery and killing this piece out directly, or them trying to snipe this out in desperation. And is it just me, or does it look like it's leaning over to this side here, like it's heavy on its left side, or is it just the chassis? I can't tell. It looks like it's leaning to me. Let me know what you guys think. Infantry, we've got the Shayet 13s. I'm bringing them in Hammers, the new Humvee truck that has just been updated to have 10 HP, which I think has been long needed for the Humvee. Give it that love that it deserves. The Shayet 13s are definitely very good, elite trained. They've got a nice gun, very accurate. They've got a nice close quarters light machine gun, which is also pretty good accurate. And they've got the small 21 AP power, 70% accuracy. It doesn't have the HE of the small, but really this is going to be the tank killer. They're going to be the all-over special forces that you need to basically secure an area of vital importance as soon as possible. Next up, I did get Givati, and the Givati are very good. I think the Marine version equivalent of the Israelis, and they come in 15-man squads. They've got a light machine gun with 600 rounds per minute, which is definitely a win in my book. That's going to be a lot of suppression and concentrated fire and trying to kill them. And with shock train, that definitely buffs up the accuracy a bit. And of course, they've got pretty nice assault rifles and some not bad RPGs, and I could bring 15 of them. I also brought them in the Bardeus instead of the Zelda. The Bardeus being the fact that it is amphibious, even though it only has one side armor all around. It's whereas the Zelda is not amphibious, even though it has 2 front and 2 side armor, but it's also slower as well. So I'd like to get my troops to the area more importantly, and because they're Marines, they deserve to cross rivers whenever it suits them. So the Bardeus wins the day. Next up, we've got regular infantry, the Roviat 90s. Now, I really debated about this. All the other YouTubers were choosing the Roviat 90s, but when I first saw the stats, I was thinking, oh, the regular Roviats are the way to go. And the reason why, for my thinking, is that regular trained infantry are not really anything special. They are just above bullet sponges that the militia bring in. And the reason why I almost chose the Roviats is because of the Fallow light machine gun. Now, 30% accuracy at 450 rounds per minute, that's very important for regular trained infantry who do not have that training to make the accuracy so much better. So this is basically a free accuracy boost, and with 450 rounds per minute, that is extremely important in terms of taking out enemy infantry, as well as the regular FAL with a 40% accuracy, even though it has less rounds per minute than the M16. When these guys are stationary, they'll be able to just be able to hit more often, and I think that was a pretty decent trade, given the fact that they're regular trained. That this would have made them very, very good. However, the one thing that changed my mind from going with the regular Roviat to the Roviat's 90s is all of the different vehicle changes in terms of armor. Now, this is also a warning. I will give this at the end of the video too, but make sure you check every one of your decks of every nation, of every alliance, because I assure you, almost all of them are screwed up. I have not looked at mine. Reading the patch notes, because a patch came out, not just Israel, but changes within the game itself. The recent patch note has definitely screwed up a number of my decks. I saw a number of units where card availability is removed, veterancy has been depreciated, armor has been increased for a lot of APCs, and that's particularly important because you used to be able to get away with this standard law of this 13 AP power could basically punch through anything. But with the increase in armor, I found that a lot of vehicles now, especially on the front and side where these will be hitting the most often, have 2 or 3 frontal or side armor, and that is enough to block the law from killing them on the first hit. So I had to go with this law with 16 AP power just to be able to kill the light armored vehicles that I expect these infantry to take out for me. So that is why I went with the Roviat 90s. I almost went to Roviat because of the accuracy and the increased fire rate for regular trained infantry. But in the end, I also went with the Roviat 90s. I also went with the Roviat 90s in the Merkava 2A over here as well. So I've got two call-ins of Merkava 2As. This one's going to be bringing in regular infantry instead of a CV with the frag grenade and the main gun. Definitely need to keep this in your deck until Eugene wises up and realizes why is a tank bringing in infantry. I don't think these 10 men can fit inside this tank, and this tank to have all the munitions that it has. Though it does only have 14 rounds per minute. Oh well. Next, I got the Barkan. The Barkan is, of course, the Stinger A variant. Only 50% accuracy, but still, that's pretty good accuracy, and you can bring in 9 of them. And Israel is kind of weak on the AA, so any kind of AA that you can throw in at the start, definitely worthwhile. And of course, I got them in the Bardelas so they could follow the Marines and provide air support for the Marines as the Marines push up. So that's my infantry. That took quite a bit of time, so let's quickly move into the support tab. Now I've got the BTR 152 TCM, BTR being, of course, they captured this during one of their many wars against the Arab neighbors. And this one has a pretty interesting autocannon. On paper, I do say on paper because I haven't actually used this unit yet, it looks like it would do a pretty decent job against helicopters. Nice rate of fire, 1 HE power. So yeah, this looks like it's pretty good. It's fast on road, it has good air detection. And I do not know about bursts. I do hope that this is not a spray and burst kind of vehicle, and then it takes a while to reload. I'm starting to dislike those vehicles because that reload time's just enough time for a helicopter to stop being stunned and shoot it with a missile for a lot of these units. So we'll definitely see how this works out. It probably will be continuous fire because it's in the support tab. I, of course, got the Macbeth because this is a radar, nice radar gun, but you get Stinger missiles, which are infrared that you can just leave on constantly. And it's very good air detection and just an overall really, really good unit for air. And you need kind of all the best air, anti-air that you can get. I also got the Shinnav 2. I almost went with the regular Shinav, which I'll just pin comparison for you guys. The only reason why I went with the Shinav 2 is the fact that it has 5% extra accuracy, and that was my entire decision. I did not particularly care about the increased range against helicopters because I have a lot of AA against helicopters already, but I decided to get with the Shinav 2 because of the 5% accuracy. You need every kind of accuracy you can against planes, especially with 30, 40, and 50% ECMs. That accuracy goes down pretty drastically, and those missiles have a hard press to hit their target. So that's all my AA for the support tab. I'm definitely going to be making a support deck of the Israeli nations later. I've got MacMats, which are what I like to call martillery, because these are mortars, but they've got the HE power of an artillery piece. So these are pretty big and bulky, but definitely have 6 HE power. This is definitely a worthwhile choice. Basically combines everything good about a mortar into everything good about an artillery piece, and like I said, martillery. So this kind of fills 2 roles, which definitely is worthwhile. And finally, I've got MAR 240 napalm rocket launchers. Now, I have not used these yet. Some other napalm rocket launchers on the Red Force side, say the Chinese napalm rocket launcher equivalent, their rockets kind of fly and fall in patches, little patches here and there that infantry can kind of squeeze through. I do not know if this artillery piece does the same kind of patchwork or anything, but the main reason why I chose this over the MAR 290 is because Blue 4 doesn't have a rocket launcher system with napalm. This is basically the first Blue 4 napalm rocket launcher, and I decided, hey, if you're going to give what made Red 4 so obnoxiously annoying with their Buratinos to a Blue 4 nation, you just have to take it in order to actually give Red 4 their own medicine. So that's why I chose that over the MAR 290. I, of course, going to put the MAR 290 into my support deck, but for now, the MAR 240 is going to be what is needed. Now, tanks. We've got some heavy-duty tanks here. We've got the Merkava 3D BAZ. This is, I think, the first heavy tank on the Blue Force side as well that has an ATGM, and fairly accurate one at that. It's just as accurate as its main gun when it's stationary. So, definitely a very, very good tank. We've got the Merkava 3B, which has its own frag grenade launcher, but unlike the infantry carrying variant, this has 21 front armor, so this can actually go right up close to infantry, so long as the infantry don't try to flank it on its really, really vulnerable side armor. I mean, geez, that's really, really crappy side armor. So that's the main gun, 10 rounds per minute. Next up, I got the Merkava 2B. This is just like the variant that brings in the infantry, but instead of a frag grenade, it's just got an extra machine gun. 18 front armor, so still pretty good. Nice gun. It only has 2,100 meters, but that is still fairly fine with 9 rounds per minute. This is still a tank of choice. Definitely able to hold off. I did debate about getting the Mecha 7C Gimel, but if we compare the two, for 20 points less, even though I have just a slight decrease in range, I do have more rounds in this gun. A little bit about the basic equivalent of the AP power. The SZ100 has a little more AP, but it has 18 front armor, and I think 18 front armor for an 80-point tank is just pretty darn good. So that's why I chose that Merkava for my medium tank. And now for my lighter tank, the Shot Cal Dalet. I know that was terrible, but this is the Centurion tank. And I got the Centurion tank because for a 40-point tank, I have a 50% accurate gun. That's 13 AP power, 8 rounds per minute, and 10 front armor, all for just a measly 40 points. And also for sentimental reasons, the Centurion tank has helped the Israelis, especially in the October War. It is what saved them from almost certain defeat. And this definitely deserves the honor of being used on the front lines here in Wargame Red Dragon today. Recon. Now, I chose some interesting recon units. I've chose the Bedouins. These are a 5-man infantry recon squad, and what makes these guys good is that they have a sniper rifle. So they have a regular gun, they've got the sniper rifle, and you can basically put them out and hide them in trees. This is basically good recon. I'm also bringing them in the Resi with the recon vehicle, so these dual serve as double recon. Pretty cheap, 30 points each, so with 30 points I get 2 recons, and they come in 9 squad. So that is why I decided to choose the Bedouins. Now for the Maglan, I did get them in Nimrods. Basically, it separates for my ATGM infantry. I get 2 types of ATGM units due to the fact that the Maglans have a laser-guided missiles. These things go super fast, is what video footage I have seen. Pretty nice accuracy, pretty decent on the AP power, and of course, very nice guns as well. So they're definitely able to hold off against their own. And of course, the Nimrod having one of the longest ATGMs in the game. Now, the reason why I didn't choose the Resi with the Maglans is because then I'd only have 4 Resis. And that did not fly with my book. I'd rather get 9 Resis than 4. So that is why these guys got the honor of coming into the Nimrod. Now, next up, I've got HVMS. And this is a good recon. But it is amphibious. It's got pretty decent armor. And it's a 60% accurate gun. The only thing is, it has no HE power. But it has 11 AP power at 29 rounds per minute for its main gun. So that means this thing will fire 11 AP power kinetic rounds every 2 seconds of just boom, boom, boom of a main cannon tank style gun. Not an autocannon, a gun. So even though you can only hit vehicles, I thought that this kind of firepower was too good to pass up, especially since I needed to figure out what I needed to spend the points on. So I decided to go with this one to see just how exactly it blows stuff up. And then finally, I got the RAM TCM. This is basically similar to the support tab. The support variant of the BTR 152 has the same kind of gun on the back. It's just faster off-road, and of course has very good optics and pretty decent autonomy. So yeah, that's going to round up my recon tab and give us a little more AA, because Israel is of course quite a bit weak on the AA department. Vehicles. Now I got the Perret, and I went in here expecting to have picked the this vehicle, because first off, it looks pretty sweet and awesome. But what changed my mind is a number of factors. First off, I thought these were the same missile. Turns out that's not the case. This is actually 10% more accurate than the Hafiz. That was enough to raise my eyebrow. Secondly, this thing has 6 front armor and 3 side armor. That is massive. It's able to take some hits, especially from artillery, and keep going. So that was another thing that raised my eyes as I compared the two of these to each other. And one final thing was, I don't know why, but I assumed the Hafiz was amphibious when I first saw it, but when I looked, turns out it is not amphibious at all. If it was amphibious, I might have still stuck with the Hafiz, because having these ATGMs on the water is pretty useful, because they could shoot at ships, as well as provide an interesting different vantage point for ATGMs that an enemy would not normally expect from a vehicle. So, but given the fact that they're not amphibious, I decided to ultimately go with the Perret with its massive amount of ATGM ordnance. Now, also, I do have prejudice. I decided to get the Sherman. Sherman, of course, being the American tank that helped us in World War II. Cheap. It should be a lot faster off-road, but it's still pretty fast on-road. And has a pretty nice accurate gun at 8 rounds per minute, 45% accuracy for only 15 points. It still will be able to provide some nice, decent fire support, or at the very least, require the enemy to take and not worth the effort to take out these tanks, as they just annoy the enemy by peppering them with shell after shell after shell. Helicopters. We've got, of course, quickly the P-10. We need all the ATGMs. This will round out the last of my ATGMs that I need. 16 Hellfire missiles, bring in 3 of these Apaches. I've made these work pretty well with the Netherlands variant. So, very, very good. Definitely going to be bringing these in. I also got the Tesfa E, and reason why is it does have the Stinger variant to provide a little more AA and versatility. It's also very good at the ground, and I was debating of also getting some Tesfa Bs because they have double the rocket pods rather than the Stingers, but they cost 55 points. If this was just a little bit cheaper, I probably would have also brought these in too, but for 55 points for just an extra 14 rockets, I think it was not worth it. So I'd rather just upgrade with 15 more points to just get very accurate Stinger missiles and shoot down other helicopters. So that's my helicopter tab, pretty light on the aircraft for that part. Now for the actual aircraft, I of course have got seed planes. Now, you usually want to get seed whenever it's available to help out allies who have aircraft. If not, if you have a very aircraft light deck. My deck is sort of medium on the aircraft, so this was definitely a no-brainer. It also has some spare missiles to help out, so it's a multi-role fighter, definitely very good for intercepting and destroying enemy seed and aircraft that try to come and intercept it. I, of course, got the Barak 2s. I've got 2 of them in at Veteran. I could have gotten the Basmus Burr, but it has 10% less ECM, and ECM is pretty important. Even though the Basmus Burr does have double the missiles, it only comes in at Hardened, if you can see that little 2 right about there. Whereas the Barak comes in at Veteran. So if I bring in 2 of these with the 50% ECM, these guys should definitely be able to shoot down anything that comes to threaten the airspace. So this is my air superiority fighter. I've also got the Rams. These also have 4 HE power bombs, and I've been loving the Harrier GR7 being able to one-shot tanks with these bombs who have 3 top armor. And this will definitely help out, as well as having HE power, so it's providing a nice big bomb run multi-role as well. Not to mention it has some nice air superiority missiles, so it's another multi-role fighter able to defend itself and help out with the barracks and shooting down enemy aircraft. And finally, we've got the KFIR C7. Now, I chose this over the Lavi for a number of reasons. Even though the Lavi has 40% ECM and is 1,000 kilometers an hour, and it has 10 500 kilogram bombs and a little bit of AA, this has 1,400 kilogram bomb, which is 23 HE power. Now, if I recall, the HE power on the B5 is 30, so this is a pretty big explosive bomb, and you can get 2 of them. And I just thought, since we are doing the whole let's give Blue 4 a bit of what Red 4 usually is infamous for, why not turn that around and put the hurt back on the Red 4 side with what they do. So this is the Blue 4 B5 equivalent. Not as good, but still pretty deadly to have to go and fight. And I was also reasonably well that my mortar piece, the MacMat, would be able to provide any extra HE that I needed. And so that was my thought process, was getting this plane over the Levy. And finally, naval, I just did my usual standard. I don't know what to put, what ships to put in this deck, so I go for all air, the Tomcat, the Super Hornet, the F111G, Tram Intruder, and the Super Etendard for just getting ships to send them to a one-way trip to the bottom of the sea. So that is my deck that I'm going to be using against enemy forces. And now I do have a bit of a plan. What I expect to do at the start here is start off with like 1 or 2 of these, maybe a couple of these guys as well, but have a couple of these. Have a few of these troops for AA. And get some Shayat 13s as well. And these guys are going to rush to a position because these are all wheeled vehicles. They can go pretty fast. And they basically go rush to a position and quickly try to intercept any kind of heli rush or anything and quickly gather a position, hold off the enemy front line until the rest of my troops and the infantry and the tanks and everything else gets up to the front lines and be able to finally duke it out. So that is my idea plan for a start. We'll see how that works out. But anyways, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video of Israel. I do hope to show you guys some gameplay footage as I go in and play with Israel and figure out how to use these guys effectively, assuming any game is not already Israel-filled and there's actually people willing to play Red 4 against this. But we will see for sure in the future. I do hope you all enjoyed this. Please do like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I will see you all in the next video. As a final note, make sure to check all of your decks. They are probably screwed up. I almost forgot to say that, but I caught myself. So, yeah, check your units, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.